In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new bunny bracelet using the rainbow loom. So what you will need is one loom, and you want to have it set up with the pins in a staggered position so they are not in line with one another. And you're going to start with the arrows facing towards you so that all of these open ends are facing you. And when using one loom, you will be able to fit 3 bunnies on. So for each bunny, you will need 11 bands for the main color, and then you will need 2 bands for, one is going to be for the nose and the other for the inside of the ears, so I've chosen pink for that. And then for the eyes, you will either need an additional band of the main color with 2 black beads that are strung on to that rubber band, or if you don't have beads, you can use a single black rubber band. And for my background color, I have chosen white, and for this you will need 90 bands, and then you will also need a few additional bands for an extension because it will not be long enough to go around your entire wrist. The first thing we're going to do is place the bunnies on the loom, and I'm going to put all of the rabbit's ears on first. So I'm going to start with my first color, which I have blue. I'm going to go to that second pin in on the left hand side of the loom, and it's going to stretch diagonally up into that middle row. And now I'm going to take another blue band. In that left hand row, I'm skipping the next pin and then going on to the next one. Again, this is going to be placed diagonally up into the middle row. These bands will be parallel to one another. And now again, I'm going to skip the next pin and then go to the following. I will switch colors to purple. Again, it's going to go diagonally and up into that center row. I'm going to take a second purple. I'm skipping the next pin, going to the next one up, and diagonally into the middle row. And then finally I'm going to go to my next color. I'm skipping that next pin, going to the following. It's going diagonally up. And then finally skipping a pin, going to the next one, and it's going to be diagonally up into the middle. And now I'm going to go back to the start again, and now we'll just work on one bunny at a time. I just wanted to get those ears on so we have a better idea of the placement of each rabbit. The next band is going to be a doubled band, so in order to do this, I just place it on my hook, twist, and put it back on. And now from the center row, where the ear that's closest to you, we're going to stretch diagonally up and to the right. It's going to be a long stretch. And it's going to be tight since the band is doubled, and then you want to push that down. And now the next band again is going to be a doubled band. And you're going to go from the next ear up in the center row. It's going to be stretched diagonally down and to the right, and it's going to be a long stretch again. It's going to cross over the band that we just put on. And now we're going to put a pink band on. This is going to be the one that shows the center of the ears, and that's going in this center row on the pin that's closest to you with the bands on. It's going to stretch straight up. It's going to skip the next pin and go to the following pin. You want to make sure that you're going around this pin so the bands are being pushed to the right side of that pin. They're not going over top of it, they're going around it. And we're going to push this down. And now we're going to add the other pink band for the nose. And in order to do this, I'm going to go to the right hand side, and right where these lower bands cross and make the X, I'm going to place my hook up through. I'm going to take this pink band and get it on this hook and pull it down through here so that it is underneath of this X. I'm taking my hook and putting the other pink band that's in my fingers through so that I have 2 bands on, and now I want this lower band at the closest to the end of my hook to go through the other, and now I'm just going to wiggle it back and forth slightly so that it just gets a little bit of a grip on it, on these 2 bands. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it to come apart. And now I'm just going to let it hang down for the moment. And now I'm going to outline these 5 pins with blue rubber bands. So starting in the center here, I'm just going to the next pin up, and then up once again. Now I'm going diagonally to the right, coming back down, and then back to the start here. And now what I want to do is remove that bottom blue layer. It's those 2 bands that we doubled. So we'll start on the right hand side here. I'm grabbing these 2 bands at once. It's going to be a little bit tight because this is a doubled band. I'm pulling it over the top and into the middle. Again, I have this pink band hanging off. I'm just leaving that go for now. And now I'm taking the next doubled band that's on the pin above, going from the outside over the top and into the middle. Now I'm flipping to the other side. Now you're going to have this bottom band that is the band that's for the ear. We're leaving that alone. We're not doing anything with that. So you want to reach in from the outside here, grab these 2 bands, this doubled band, make sure you don't get the pink one, pulling it out and into the middle. And now there's nothing to do on the next pin because that doesn't have a bottom layer. And then onto this next pin, you're going to have the same scenario. You have this band at the bottom that is the ear. We're not doing anything with that. You're grabbing those next 2 blue bands. It's that doubled band. Make sure you don't get the pink. Pull it out and into the middle. And now you're going to push all of this in towards the center. And we're going to push all of this down. And now we're going to take another blue band. It's going to go on the right hand side on the pin that's closest to you with the bands on it. It's going to go diagonally up and to the left into that middle row. And I'm going to place another band that's going to go from that pin diagonally up and to the right. And now what we're going to do is remove the bottom bands on those 3 pins. So I'm going to take the bottom band, pull it out over the top and into the middle, move up to the next and do the same thing. Take this bottom band, pull it into the center, and now I'm flipping to the other side. I'm working on this pin in the middle, and I'm grabbing the bottom 2 bands, pulling them out over the top and into the center. And now I want this loop that I have from my nose, and I want it to go on this center pin. And finally, I'm going to work with the 2 bands that are for the ears. So the one that's closest to me, I'm reaching down through the center of the pin. I'm pushing back on all of these upper bands, grabbing just that bottom blue band, pulling it up through, and putting it back on itself. And then what I'm going to do is actually remove these bands from this pin. So that should all be looped in there, so you don't have to worry about that coming apart. And now on the other ear, the same thing. I'm reaching down through the middle, grabbing just the bottom blue band, pulling it out and putting it back on itself. And then again, I'm going to remove these bands from that pin. And now I'm going to push all of this down to the bottom. So that is it for the first rabbit. Now we'll move on to our next one. And we already know where it's going to be placed because we have those ears in place. So I'm going to take my first purple band. I'm going to double it. It's going to stretch from that center pin diagonally to the right. It's going to be that tighter stretch, and it's a long stretch. Now I'm going to double another purple band. This time it's going to go to this upper ear in the center row and stretch diagonally down and to the right, that long stretch, and push down. And now I want to add a pink band that's going to be the inside of the ears. I'm starting in the center on the pin closest to me, stretching it to that second pin up, and remember it's going to the right side of that middle pin. Make sure it's not on that pin, that it's to the right side of it. And now I'm going to do the band for the nose. I want it to go on this X here on the right side. So I'm taking my hook, reaching up through, taking one end of this pink band and pulling it underneath. Now I'm getting the other side back on the hook, so there's two bands, and this band that's closest to the end of the hook is going to loop inside of the other, and then wiggle it back and forth a little bit to get it snug, and then just let it hang there. And now we're going to outline those 5 pins. So starting in the center, just going to work my way around. And you can push these down as you need to have room to add the next bands. And now I want to remove the bottom layer of the doubled bands. It's going to be on 4 of the pins. I'll start on the right hand side, taking them both from the outside and over the top into the middle. Going on to the next one, again the same thing. Flipping to the inside row, again you have this band that is the ear that we're not doing anything with. Make sure that stays on the bottom. You're grabbing the next 2 bands at once, pulling it out into the middle. And then the same thing on this next pin. You're leaving that bottom band alone, grabbing the next 2 and pulling it into the middle. And now we're going to push all of this down. And then finally we're going to add 2 more purple bands. It's going to start on the right hand row. The pin that's closest to you with the bands on, it's going to go into the middle. And then from that middle pin it's going to go diagonally up and to the right. And now we want to remove the bottom band on these 2 front pins. So just that very bottom one is coming out and over the top. And then on the other side, just on the center pin, we have 2 bands. You're grabbing them both at once, pulling them into the middle. And now this loop of the pink band, that's the bunny's nose, is going to go to the pin above. And then lastly, we have these 2 bands that are for the ears. Remember, you're going down inside, pushing back on all of these upper bands, grabbing just this bottom band and moving it back on itself. And then I'm going to remove all of these bands from that pin, and they should be all held in place by that top ear band. And then again the same thing, you're going down through the middle, grabbing that bottom band and pulling it up to the left there, and then taking these bands off. And then we're going to push all of this down. Now we have one more rabbit to do. It's going to be that same pattern again. So we're starting with a doubled band. It's going from the ear that's closest to you in the center, diagonally up and to the right. Take another doubled band. It's going on this upper ear in the middle, and it's going to stretch diagonally down and to the right, push this down. And now we're going to add the pink bands. In the center here, you're going on this pin, stretching up, you're skipping that next pin and going to the very next pin up. And you want to make sure that it's going on the right side of this pin and that it's staying in the same order on the pin. And now we're going to do the nose. So again, we want this X here on the right hand side. We're going up through with the hook, grabbing the pink, pulling it underneath, and putting it back on, the part that's in your fingers. And now the band that's closest to the end of the hook is going inside of the other one. And then tighten this up a little bit. And now we're going to outline these 5 pins again, starting in the middle. Just going one right after the other. And now we want to remove the bottom layer of bands. So starting on the right, I'm grabbing the bottom 2, pulling them out and into the middle. Make sure that these upper bands are staying on as you're doing that. On to the next one. Flip to the other side. Again, you're leaving this bottom band alone, grabbing those next 2 bands, always from the outside and in. You're leaving this bottom band alone, grabbing the next 2 and pulling them into the center. And then you want to push this down. And now we're going to place the last 2 green bands on. The pin on the right closest to you with the bands on, it's going into the middle. And then from that pin back out to the right. And now we're going to remove that bottom band on those 3 pins. So just one from these outside pins. And then in the center you want the bottom 2. And now we have this loop for the nose that's going to move up onto that pin. And then finally the bands for the ears. You're going down through the middle, pushing back on all of these upper bands, getting that bottom green band and moving it up to the left, taking these off, and then the same thing again, moving these up to the left and taking those off. And then that's it for the bunnies. So now you're going to turn your loom around so that the arrows are now facing away from you, and we're going to put the background bands on. So for this part, I always use 2 bands at once because it helps the bracelet to hold its shape. So from the center, you're going out and to the left. And now we're just going to work our way up the left side of the loom, always with 2 bands, always pushing down to the bottom. And you want to try and keep these as straight as possible while you're doing it. So I'll just work my way up the left side here, just one right after the other. And now you're stopping 1 pin short from the end of the loom, and the last 2 bands are going to go into that center row. And then you're going to go back to the start, and this time you're going to start on the center row and move out to the right. Again, always 2 bands at once and always pushing them down. Again, you're stopping 1 pin short from the end of the loom, and the last 2 bands are moving into that center row. And now back to the start once again, and this time we're going to do the center row. So starting at the bottom, you're just going to keep moving up. and you're going to go all the way to the end of the loom, and then you want to turn your loom around. So now the arrows are facing towards you, and we have the cap bands to put on. So on the end in the center, we're just doubling this band, and it's going to go right there on top of that pin. And now for the rest of these, what we're going to do is go from the left-hand side, stretch all the way over to the right, and also go around the center pin. So it's going to make a triangle, and you're just going to do that the rest of the way up the loom. And then this is the last one I'm going to place. I'm not going to do it on the very end. And now you want to go back to the start, and it's time to start looping. So I'll just move these off to the side here for now. Now we're going to start in the center, and as you can see, that pin is very full. It has 2 bands on top, that's the cap band. The next 2 bands move forward. The next 2 bands go out to the left, and then the bottom 2 go out to the right. So we're just going to work our way in order. I'm putting my hook down through the middle, pushing back on those top 2 bands, grabbing those next 2 bands. You're going to need to hold this cap band in place, and we're moving those bands forward. You're going back down through, pushing back on those top 2 again, grabbing the next 2, moving them out and to the left, and now going back down through, grabbing the bottom 2, and they are going to move out and to the right. So now I'll just work my way up the left side of the loom. On this first pin, you're going to need to push back on the top 4 bands. You're going to grab the next 2 bands. That's going to be the main color of your bracelet. So mine is white, and they're going to move ahead. And then I'm going back down through this same pin, grabbing the next 2 bands, which are the color of the rabbit, and moving that forward. And now on this next pin, I need to go down through the middle. It's important that you're always going down through the center so that this cap band that's part of this triangle is behind your hook. You're grabbing these next 2 bands and moving ahead. And now again, I'm going down through the middle, making sure that this band is behind my hook. And this time I have the 4 bands to move ahead as well. So I have the background bands and then the 2 color of the rabbit bands. Make sure they both make it on there. And now I'm back to just the 2 background bands. So basically every other pin is going to switch. So now we have the 4. So we're starting the next rabbit. And back down through here for the purple. And now on this pin we have just the 2. And now here's the other ear. So I want all 4 bands to move ahead. And now I have just the 2. And now I have 4. I'm having a hard time keeping them on. I guess my bands need to be pushed down more. Now grabbing the next 2. And here's our last ear. So you have the 2 white, and now I have the 2 green. And then finally here I have just the 2 white, and they are going to move into that middle row. And now I'm going to go back to the start, and this time I'm going to work my way up the right side of the loom. So I'm going to have the same thing on this side. On that first pin, I have the 4 bands on top that I need to get behind my hook. I just want those bottom 2 bands. We're going to move ahead. And now on this next pin I have all 4 bands because this is part of my rabbit. So I'm only just doing 2 at a time because I don't want it to put too much pressure on my hook. And now again, I have all 4. And on this next pin here, I have just the 2. And now the same thing again. And now I'm on to my next bunny here. So for these next 2 pins, I'm going to have 4 bands. I'm going back down through. And now I have to have just the 2. And now the same thing again. And then finally here's the last rabbit. So I want the white and then the green. And then repeat that again. Getting the 2 white, and now the green. And then finally those last 2 white bands are moving out and into the middle. And now it's back to the start once again. Now we just have the center row to finish. So I'm going down through, pushing back. I have just the 2 white. And now on these pins in the middle, you're going to have the most bands. There's going to be 2 bands on top, that's going to be your background color. You're going to have that pink band, which is from the nose, and then you're going to have 2 rabbit bands, whatever color rabbit you're working on. So first I will do the 2 white. And now I'm going to go down through. And what you can do is just, if you want to separate them, you can do just the nose and then go back down through for a 3rd time and grab the 2 rabbit bands. Or if you want, you can do it in 2 steps, get 2 bands one time and 3 bands the next, which is what I'm going to do on the next ones. So here I have just 2, and then again, just 2. I'm only going to have 2 bands on all but the center of the rabbits. And now here I have a rabbit again, so I want the 2 white. And now I'm actually going to go back down through. I'm going to grab all 3. So I have the pink and the 2 purple. Make sure when you're grabbing too that you're going down through and only grabbing those bands that are wrapped around this pin, because you do have these bands that are for the ear that are a little bit close to that, but just make sure that they are behind your hook as well, because you don't want to grab any of those by mistake. And now we're just going to keep working our way up. And now here once again we have the 2 white bands, the background bands. And now I have the pink and the 2 green. I'm just going to grab them all at once and move them ahead. And then finally the 2 white. And that's the last one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the start here, and I'm just going to carefully take these rubber bands off. I like to do this slowly because I don't like the rubber bands to get bent out of shape, especially for where the rabbits are. I want it to try to stay in the best possible positions. So I'm just going to carefully reach my hook inside and pull these off. You want to make sure that all of the bands are being released from each of the pins as you're doing this, because sometimes they do get hung up. So I will just fast forward here. And I'm going to leave these last few bands on the pins because the next thing I need to do is get a band that's going to hook all of these loose ends. So I'm going to take my hook and go down through, reach out to the side. I'm going to grab another white band here, and I'm going to turn my hook and pull it up through. Put that loose end back on. Now just make sure as you take the rest of these off that you're holding these two bands on your pin. You don't want them to accidentally slip off. And then here are what the rabbits look like. And you can see that they're a little bit out of shape, and what you want to do is just work with them to get them in the best bunny shape as possible. But I'm actually going to wait to mess around with it until I get the extension done. That way I don't want to take any chances of this coming loose. So for now I'll just put that aside. You're going to take your loom. You want the arrows to be facing away from you. And I am going to put 4 bands, one right after the other. I'm just going to work on this right hand row. This is just going to be a simple chain. And now I'm taking these 2 loose ends from my bracelet. Just going to place this as the next band. And now I want to reach down through the middle and just pull this band back. Just keep working backwards. And I'm going to put my hook down through the middle and pull this off. And now I'm going to take a clip. I have an S clip here. I'm just going to put these 2 loose ends through the one side. And I'm going to go on the other side here. In the middle there should be a circle. Just going to put my hook through there. I'm going to take this band and put it through that circle. Put it back on my hook. Again, I'm going to just place this aside. And now again I'm going to do 4 bands, one right after the other. And I'm going to again place these 2 loose ends on these pins here. And then I'm just going to grab the inside band and pull back. Now I'm going to take my hook in the middle and pull this off. I'm going to take the other end of the S clip and get these bands through. And then here is my bracelet. But as I said, we need to help these bunnies out a little bit. So these are the bands that are the ears. And you want to first of all stretch this background out. And you want to get the ears in the right position. And you can see that there's these green bands that hold the ears in place. So if you think the ear is too far out, all you have to do is grab this background band and just pull the ear through a little bit towards the back more. And then also you can take this and sort of push this down as well so that the round part of the face is lower. And then here's the nose, you can see. So you can play with it a little bit till you get it how you like it. And then we'll go on to the next one and just keep repeating that. You want the pink to be more in the center. And then the same thing again. Just takes a little bit of adjustment. And so now we need to add the eyes. So what I'm going to do for that is, here's one that I already put these 2 beads on, and so I want it to go on the outside. So what I'm going to do is reach my hook in from the back. I'm going to get it to be hidden behind the bunny, come out to the side, grab one end of this loop, and I'm going to pull it through to the back. And now I need to get the other band on the other side. So it's important that you leave this on your hook, the one you already have. And now you're going to reach through again. You want it to come out the other side. You're grabbing the other end here of the loop. And again, you're pulling it through to the back. Trying to not get caught up on any other bands in the process. And now you have these 2 loose bands on your hook. So what you can do is take another band and just pull it through these 2. And then you want to get the other end back on your hook. And now pull the end that's closest to the hook through the other one. And this time you want to pull nice and tight. And that's going to make a slip knot. And then what you can do also is just go through some of these bands on the back and just pull this through so it's not hanging loose. And then you have your eyes attached. And if you need to adjust the beads on the band at all, you can do that. So that's what he looks like. And then I'll repeat that process for the purple one. And now I'll show you what to do if you don't have any beads and you want to still make this little guy. So what you're going to do is reach your hook inside of here. There should be this pink band. It might be a little bit buried, but you want to grab that pink band, get your hook underneath of it, in between the green here. You want to make sure that the green is on the outside. So now you can just see the pink here. And I'm going to take a black band and I'm going to put it on this part of my hook and slide it through. And now I'm going to take this loose end, put it back on. So I have the 2 black bands, and the band closest to the hook is going to go through, and it's going to make a slip knot. And you see how it sort of splits here. If you do it loosely, not too tight, it's going to split. And that's what we want to happen. And so then you will reach your hook in from the back side and grab the loop of this black band and pull it to the back. And then where this is split, that's going to be like the 2 eyes. So you can, again, you can adjust this if you want to pull it back a little more towards the back so you don't see where that knot part is. And you want to separate these so it looks like 2 pupils. And then again on the back here, what you can do is you can take your hook and put it through some of these bands and grab this loop and just string that through so that it's not sticking out. And then that's what it's going to look like if you do it with that method. I think that the beads are cuter, but not everybody has beads available to them, so you use what you have. And so here is another bracelet that I made using this same technique. This time I used the length of 2 looms, and I kept the bunnies all white, and then I just changed the color of the inside of the ears and the nose for each of the rabbits, and I used the beads for each of those as well for the eyes. And so that is the bunny bracelet. I hope that everybody was able to follow along. You can always leave me comments on YouTube or Facebook. Feel free to send me pictures of your creations to my Facebook page and to sign up for my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest creations. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram. Thanks for taking the time to watch my tutorial today.